Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Tiffany in Rome, Katy in Seattle. And if you've been listening to the show for the last couple of weeks, you may have noticed that it's been a while since we've done a show together. Tiffany did an interview, and then we did Sister Fest last week, so here we are together again. And it's not only just a habit, or a happenstance rather, of the show. We actually haven't talked to each other very much either recently because of various circumstances, including me being gone on Sister Fest. And so today we're going to do kind of a potpourri, I guess, of a show, kind of catching up on what the heck's been going on, both here in Seattle and abroad in Rome, or here in Rome and abroad in Seattle. Where indeed should we begin?
Well, Katy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that you have had a loss in your family very recently. And if you want to talk about that, then if not, don't worry about it. But if you if you want to go there.
We can talk about it. We've actually had two losses in our family since you and I last talked. My father's older brother passed away, my Uncle Rick, and my grandmother, who we've talked about on this show, I'm sure, many times, also passed away last week at the age of 107 years old. And it's strange when someone is 107 years old, we can't help but be like, wow, what a life, what an amazing life. And I would say that my grandmother did live an amazing life, in the sense that she was 107 when she died, and she was very much like, she obviously couldn't do a lot of things that she could do before, but she was still very much herself in many ways. It was never like she couldn't beat me at Scrabble if I was playing her. She was always she just stayed sharp till the very end. And
What was her secret? Do you know?
I mean, I know her personality, so I could kind of like guess at what the secrets were. I mean, I think number one, one of the things I admired about her the most, and that I think stands out about her the most, two qualities really, that stand out about her the most, is one, she was extremely enthusiastic. She was one of the most enthusiastic people I've ever known, if not the most enthusiastic person. Just the kind of person who would see something in the world and be like, can you believe it? Like, oh my, she was just, I could almost insert an audio clip of her, because I used to tape her sometimes when she was being enthusiastic. Or you don't say, or, she just had like a general wonder and investment in things, and loved seeing new things and just being out in the world. It wasn't like she did different things every day, I mean, she did the same things every day, but she was an enthusiastic participant in the world. And I think that was part of it.
Oh, look!
Well, you got a lot of
Nice.
bells. Yeah.
Look,
Oh, there's the train going
oh,
under there.
there's a train going. Oh,
That's
I
nice.
love seeing that.
Never
We
get
were
this-
lucky.
Oh, can we slow?
Look at it.
Yeah.
We never see it. Hear it?
I think her other major quality was a lack, and this seems like a weird quality to have, but a lack of sentimentality, where she, unlike her granddaughter, me, who some of you are very familiar with after listening to me for 11 years, she didn't like hand-wring about stuff necessarily. She just moved on. And I don't know whether or not that was like a great quality or a sign of not reflecting enough. I have no idea, but she just kind of was like, life goes on, pick yourself up and keep going, was kind of her attitude.
Honestly, that might be a lot to do with just her generation. And you probably don't know a lot of people from that generation to compare her with, because most of them are long gone, long gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, she lived through the Great Depression. She was old enough to be,
Yeah.
she was probably an adult during World War too.
Yeah.
She was fully cognizant of what was going on,
Yep.
and she's seen a lot. I think people were they made them tougher back then, Katie.
Well, she definitely I mean, in a way it's quite tragic. My grandmother, when she was in her 20s, not only lost both parents, but her brother was killed in World War II. He was a fighter pilot, and he was shot down and crashed in France. And she was the one who answered the door when the military showed up with the folded flag, and had to break the news to her family. So she has
And
been.
her parents would have already been gone
No, they were
if
still.
they died when she was 20.
No, they died in her 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I believe I could have it wrong, but I believe she had to tell them. Maybe her father was already gone, but she had to. I could have that wrong. I'm not sure. I should look it up. But she, at least had to tell her mother. But I mean, that also meant that, she lived to 107 years old. That means that for 80 something years, she had no family. Her immediate family were all gone. And granted, she was married. She had my mother and her siblings, but her immediate family, all of them were gone by the time she was 30 years old. So she, lived the vast majority of her life without them. And I don't know if that helped with the moving on, but I mean, she was the kind of person I used to laugh at it. She hated talking on the phone. She would do it because she lived across the country and she wanted to know what was going on with you, enthusiastically wanted to know what was going on with you. But her patience with the phone was like to a point, and she always was like ready to hang up. And so once the pandemic happened and she was feeling more isolated, me and my sisters pitched in to buy her an iPad so that people could FaceTime her. So the FaceTime becomes like the new phone for her. She loves that she can see us. It definitely connects her and makes her less lonely. But she had like a pen or a stylus. And sometimes when she was getting tired with the call, she would like pick it up in her hand. I just hit the microphone with the pen in my hand. And, you would start to see her reaching in to push the hang up button. Be like, okay, all right. And sometimes you're like, okay, Grammy, thanks. So nice to talk to you, and she'd be gone.
My gosh. Yeah.
So
that is, I can't relate. I cannot relate.
But I think her other secret to longevity was the pieces of advice I've given on this show before. One, she had the advice of like one thing you need to try to do every day. And eventually she did lose this ability, for those of you who are counting, that you should wake up every morning and make sure that you can touch your toes. That was one of her things. Because if you can't touch your toes, then you can't put on your shoes, and that is going to like ruin your independence. You don't want to have somebody else help you put on your shoes, if at all possible. And then her other thing was just keep moving even though it hurts. Because as you get older, things start to hurt. And she was just like, it doesn't matter. Get out there. Keep moving around. And she was like,
I saw a photo of her on a bicycle, no hands.
Yeah, she rode a bike with no hands until almost 100.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I have never been able to do that. Even Aurelio can't do no hands yet. He can do it for like a couple seconds, but not for any extended period of time.
Yeah, she loved riding with no hands. I mean, she was not above like, showing off these amazing abilities that she had as an older person.
Well, she deserved it.
I mean, she still wore heels for a long time. And it was very frustrating to her when she started losing these abilities, like around 103. I think I saw her in person the last time. She was like 103, turning 104 soon. And for one, she was like, oh, I'm not going to make it to 104. Like, this is it. It's something that she told me. But of course she did. And she made it to 107. But she was also starting to have issues with her balance. And so she'd have to move around sometimes with like a walker or something like that. Or she'd try to walk without the walker, but then she'd get kind of tippy. And she just couldn't stand that. She was just like, oh, I just can't stand, having this disability. Because she was so used to being able to just do whatever she wanted all the time. So it was frustrating, to be sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But
still amazing and such an inspiration. You don't have to quote unquote get old.
Right. You know, she
Um,
also, like, after she and my grandfather were married for over 50 years and had three wonderful children. And when my grandfather died, she felt like, gosh, we're old, you know, like he just died. I'm like, I probably have like what, 3 years left or something. You know, that's kind of how she was feeling. And eventually she met a man across the street who also lost his wife, who he had also been married to for decades and decades. And they ended up getting married. And since they both lived so long, they ended up being married for 26 or 7 years,
Whoa.
you know, and had this entire second chapter, you know. And she said the
That's
reason we got
cool.
married so fast was we thought, like, we're about to die, you know, let's like go do something. Um, and then, of course, they ended up living, you know, George died in his mid 90s. So, and my grandmother was older than him, so younger man. Uh, but I mean, it was like they, you know, they just had she had this entire second chapter or third chapter, fourth chapter. I don't know what
Third,
chapter she would
yeah.
consider it, but yeah, she just, and that's part of like just keep moving on, you know, like just, you know,
Don't dwell.
don't
Yeah.
dwell. Yeah. And, you
I
know,
can totally see that
and that's not all
being.
great for people who love you. Like, you know, for my mother, having her mother just move on after her father died and have her mother just like move on and start this new romance was really hard from the kid's perspective. You're like, that's dad. You're not going to mourn him for longer than, you know, you're just going to move on and marry this other guy. You know, and so that quality can be hurtful to other people too, you know, but that's the way she did it.
Well, at the end of the day, it's your life, and you have the right to lead it as long as you're not actively hurting people, which he was gone. So, you know.
Yep. You know, and she was also like interested in her appearance, you know, things like that where you're like, well, you know, I think you get to a point where you don't really care. And she would always still, you know, get dressed up, and it got harder as she got older, but it wasn't like extravagant. But I forget who asked, but I was in a conversation where somebody asked her, like, now you're like 104, 5 years old, you know, you're not going to go anywhere today. You know, you're going to get up, you're going to eat breakfast, you're going to take a nap. You might go do an exercise class at your assisted living facility. You're going to read a book for a while. You're going to eat dinner. You're going to go to bed at like
Sounds like my days.
yeah, you're going to go to bed at like 6:37 p.m., you know. By the time you're like 105, you're not up that much. You know, it's kind of like you're keeping baby hours. You're sleeping most of the day. And, you know, so somebody asked, like, well, why do you get so dressed up every day still? Like, why do you put everything together and fix your hair and put on jewelry and makeup? And she goes, that's what I've done every day. That's just like what you do to get the day going. And, you know, I want to look presentable. And she
Yeah,
always
I
used to
think
say, I'm
that's,
trying to keep it together.
she kind of reminds me of my grandmother, my paternal grandmother in some ways. She lived to be 96. She was born in 1910. So she would have been even older if she had lived than your grandmother. I remember her, I mean her posture. I mean just straight as an arrow posture. Her hair was always done. I don't know how much makeup. I never really noticed. I never thought to look and see if that she was wearing makeup, but I mean, she probably was wearing makeup, and she always had her jewelry on, and she always drank her martinis. She was a martini drinker and a smoker, I should say. She'd had at least one martini every day, and she smoked, and she lived to be 96. So draw the conclusions that you
All
will.
right.
She probably had very good genes as well. But she was also totally unsentimental. Like she didn't have a, and she wasn't the nicest grandma on the block either, unlike yours. She could be a little rough. And she played favorites too. Her first granddaughter, that was it. She fell in love with her first granddaughter. The other ones didn't matter so much. It was all about her first granddaughter. But she had a great sense of humor, and she was like one of those people who would tell jokes with a completely straight face. And she did that until she died, basically. She was always very funny and sarcastic, kind of sarcastic, and lived on her own until like the year before she died or less. And she was also a widow. She was, unlike your grandmother, also, she was a widow for so long. She never remarried, but her husband died before I was born.
Hmm.
I think he died before my sister Monique was born. I think he
Mm-hmm.
died in 1973,
Uh-huh.
and she lived until 2006.
Wow.
So she was a widow for quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like my grandmother too, she could be she would definitely comment about you could have a better hairstyle or things like that.
Yeah.
In fact, in the final year of her life, she had this aide that she really liked. When my mom and her sister finally convinced her that she needed more help than she had, like that she was no longer capable of doing certain things. She had this young aide who she really liked, like a young woman who was in her 20s. And so sometimes when we'd call, that young woman would be there and she'd be like on the call too. And she'd be like, your grandmother told me today that her hair is better than mine. And we'd laugh and I'd say, welcome to the family.
That's cute.
You've been fully accepted. You've now had a critique of your hair. So there you go. It's funny too though when I don't even know that as we're speaking I've like even processed the fact that she's not going to be around anymore, because when somebody's around for 107 years, and I haven't been alive for 107 years obviously, but she's been around for so long in my life and she just kept on. She was just like tough as nails, as people would say. You just got to a point where you feel like she's always going to be here. She's always going to be around. And of course, that she's not going to be around. But I feel like since she was in her 70s, my mother has been saying to me, you should go spend time with your grandmother. She's not going to be around forever. And after a while, you're like, well, it's been 3 decades or something now. Like, I don't know how pressing it is, that I go see her this moment. But, so obviously we knew like at 107, it wasn't going to be much longer, most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels strange to think like, oh, she's not here anymore. But at the same point, it's like you also have to go, well, she'd gotten to a point where she's like, well, why am I still around? Every single person I knew and loved, all of my friends, all of my husbands, all of my close acquaintances, my brother, my parents, like my grandparents, everybody is gone. And I'm like the only person left on the planet. Why am I still here? I think she definitely felt that way. So for her, in a way, like she was ready to go. Yeah. She'd been ready to go for a while. So,
Yeah. Well, and it was a good life.
yeah. And she got to read my book. She lived long enough to read my book.
Oh my God.
Which is,
That's wonderful.
given how long it took me to write that book in my life, like how late in life I came to like writing a book, it's pretty cool that my grandmother lived long enough to actually read that book and read it multiple times. She read it through a few times. Like she read it once herself, and then my aunt was reading it to her kind of in perpetuity, I guess, until she was no longer with us. That's
I have a
also really
picture. I think my stepbrother took it. He was living with my dad and my stepmom, his mother, in the last years of my dad's life. And I remember him emailing me or texting me and saying, you got to send dad, he called him dad, even though it was his stepdad. You got to send dad your book. You got to send dad your book. And I said, well, it hasn't been published yet. And I just let me wait until it's been published. And he just said, he was there on the ground, he knew. And he said, there's not time. It's not going to be published. There's not time. You got to send something. So I sent one of the galleys, which is like a paperback copy that's not for sale, that they send out to book reviewers and people like that. It's the first hard copy you get, really, of the book. It's actually kind of an exciting thing. So I sent that. As soon as I got it, I sent him a copy of it. And there's a picture of him that they took. And I mean, he wasn't able to read it. They might have read it to him. I don't remember now. But he is holding it. And it was really close to the end. And there's something in his eyes in that picture that I feel like he knew. My dad died of Alzheimer's, for anyone listening who doesn't know. But I feel like he knew that that was my book. And there's like almost like tears in his eyes a little bit in that picture.
Yeah. And you're his baby. You're the littlest one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Well,
Yeah.
All right.
It's been a heavy episode. We didn't set out for it to be. We were going to be like, let's catch up. Let's talk about our lives.
I mean, we haven't even talked about my uncle yet, but we're not going to. We're gonna. No offense to Uncle Rick. Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, anybody who listens to this show on a regular knows it's been a kind of a hard year for our family, and even just my mom went back to the Midwest to be with her mother the last couple days she was alive. And me and my sister, Sarah, went to go stay with my dad, who has also been recovering from brain surgery and brain radiation and brain cancer himself. And at one point, when we finally heard the news, 10 something in the morning, that my grandmother had passed away, my father just said, kind of philosophically, how can you try to break a family? Because it was like one more hard thing, you know? And I said, well, and Sarah said also, you know, they haven't done it yet. They haven't done it yet. So it's definitely been like a hard, like the buildup of all of these different things has been really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anywho, to make it even heavier. However, I will say that one of the things that we've been able to do, I think, fairly decently as a family, and maybe you felt this listening to Sister Fest, is to find humor in things and also to kind of take note of the poignant moments. And so here we are in the midst of this hard thing. My mother's away, we're taking care of Dad, and we're all now beginning to mourn the loss of our grandmother. And yet Sarah said to me later on, and I had written stuff down in my notebook too, just taking notes of like things I wanted to remember about this time together. And she said it more eloquently than this, but basically, you know, this sucks, but at the same point, I think there's going to be stuff from this period that I'm never going to forget for the rest of my life. And one of those things was my mother was away, and so Sarah shared a bed with my dad to be with him overnight. And you know, I heard them talking down the hallway. I was up actually editing an episode of The Bittersweet Life as a way of relaxing at the end of the day. And I heard them talking up the hall, chatting and laughing, you know, while they're both laying in bed together. And I asked her later on, I said, what were you guys talking about? You know, I almost came to the door and said, now kids, it's time to go to bed, you know, just for fun. But I decided to leave them alone. And I said, what were you talking about? And she said, oh, we were reminiscing about a trip that we took together when I had just graduated high school, because we both figured that was probably the last time we'd shared a bed together. And so she's like, you know, those are the kinds of things that you don't ever forget. You know, the chance to share a bed with your dad again, even though it's in a terrible circumstance. So I don't know. We're trying to make the best of it all.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. Really good job. More than most people.
Can I also do a quick shout out to Teresa, who came on our first Rome trip, because she sent me a care package. Hearing all of these hard and heavy things,
Aww.
She sent me a care package with tea and the most delicious chocolates. I don't remember what brand of chocolates these are, but they're so good. It was just such a nice gesture. And I've also gotten several cards in the mail from many of you, actually, and it's just extremely touching, you know, to actually get mail about this and know that you're thinking about the family. It's really nice.
That's really sweet. You know, sometimes it feels like you're going along and everything's great. You're like, and all of a sudden, like, you lose several people at the same time, or over like the space of a couple of years, which happened in my family as well. It's unbearably hard, of course, whatever the situation. But in my family, and I will say that most of my family members are, you know, they definitely believe in the afterlife. They're very, very strong believers in heaven. And so not everybody is. So this is not going to help everybody. But I just know, you know, my dad was kind of the first to go, not the very first, of course, but, you know, in this kind of wave of losses that we had. Because since my dad died, we've lost my nephew, my sister, half sister Tia, my stepbrother, and both of my dad's siblings. And as you do with the gallows humor, like you're talking about, you just have to have the gallows humor when you're going through stuff like that. And I just remember everybody saying, well, they're gonna have so much. Just think about how much fun they are having. Like they are having a blast up there, and they feel sorry for us because we're not up there with them
Yeah,
having so much fun.
it's a lovely thought. Yeah, I had that same thought. I'm like, if there is an afterlife of some kind, I hope that my grandmother, when she crosses to the other side, I hope the first person she runs into is her brother.
Oh, right.
Because he's been gone for so long, and it would be so fun to even just be like, so what happened, because it's always been a bit of a mystery of like what happened, in the end. Like even just that would be a fun reunion. Anywho.
Yeah, we're being silent because we're both trying not to cry right now.
That's why we laugh instead. All right. All right, well, let's leave it there. And thanks for all the love and support, everybody. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye.
Look at this.
Pretty.
Right into the
No,
mountains.
not very close.
See
They're
this?
not far away, are they?
Oh, it's lovely. Oh, my word.
Yeah, driving through the mountains. Oh.
And that red dirt, that's natural here, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow.